So this is the Hichtun, as they called it, the high town, Upper Rye, the high end of the townland of Rye. And this site gave Rye its name, because this is where there was an early Christian, or more properly, Iron Age fort, a home for those early people, circular enclosure. That's what Rath means. The wood itself is Forth or fort, and the field behind it is the castle. For many, many generations, the Catholic Church had a doctrine of limbo, which meant that children who died before baptism or who were stillborn were not allowed to be buried in the Catholic cemetery. Therefore, their parents were left to their own devices. They had a very ancient practice of using old sites, and often raths or old churches or castle sites, and they interred their children there after sunset and before sunrise. And they didn't really bury them at all. They built a wee cairn of stones around the small body and left them there in the dark of the night. It really was a very sad practice and must have been heartbreaking for the parents involved. This is one such graveyard. This was an early Celtic home, a family home probably, overlooking the Swilly with good vantages. So it was a place that was easily defended in the Bronze and Iron Age. And when they were left to find a place that was sacred for their little children, they chose this place. Probably for a couple of 100 years, many, many, many countless children were interred here with no religious ceremony and no monument. And we felt that some commemoration should be made for them, that some way we would honour their memory. They are nameless, but they're not forgotten.
You want the stick through? Taking that there. You want the stick? You hold that yet? I can't try it. Well, leave the stick through. The stick through. Just hold. Can you hold that, John? No. But the rope doesn't stop for now. I don't think. I don't think. No, don't need them. She's low enough. I don't think. Can you hold that, John? I think. That's that, John. Take it away from me, yeah. Whoa! Whoa! Right, put your hand. Get out. Come on, Bob. Get up. Come on, let up. Gently. Whoa. Leave it there when the horse is over the road. Leave it. Let him stand, Whoa. Hold her now, we're doing this. Get up. Whoa. Don't come out. Let up. Over there. Whoa. Get up. Keep going. Keep going. Whoa. Come on. Get up. Good, Bob. Go up. Good dog. Keep going. You ready? Sorry, yes, keep her back, please. Not that right, yeah. So we're ready to go. Right? Right. Get up!
So this is the site that gave the townland of Rye its name. Rye from Rath, which means a fort, and the fort is the site of the graveyard we've been talking about. And you can see why the Stone Age or maybe even Iron Age people chose this site. It's a perfect vantage point directly opposite the Greenan of Allach, and indeed a later construction Burt Castle. But they had a great view here over the Swilly and could see any attacking forces coming at them. There was a strong legend that there was a souterrain here, or a cave, an escape route that took us all the way from here to the townland of Ballyconley. All through my childhood I hoked and dug and looked for that souterrain, but it evaded me. I'm sure it's there somewhere, but later generations will, I hope, find it.
We're getting there, take it away. There you go. Go. No. Get it on. Oh. Go ahead. Take them up. We're ready, guys. Go.
They were bringing in the horse.
Stand there. Stand there. You ready? Yeah. What? What? What?
That's like an old say. All right, go on ahead.
You ready? Go.
Steady on.
Oh, what? Whoa, stop.
Too much power in them now. Relax.
That's it.
The confidence. There. Okay.
Another.
There. This wasn't going to be. How did them boards look at this? Okay, steady. Then now we're going to go for the next thing.
Aye.
We'll wait on the next thing. We'll just drag a couple of stones and just in case. Yeah, alright. Just let it come up with us now. Maybe we're too late. Just keep holding and we'll let it down as we come. If you've got, just keep holding it.
It's going now, so.
You have to balance it from down that side then. Down the front side. You alright? Is you under pressure? Just one ahead, let the boards down, let the boards down. Don't be afraid to the board down. Somebody's got a lot of weight here.
The board will get trapped.
No, you're alright, don't worry about the board getting trapped. We're all okay. Just don't get the fingers caught, alright? Everything's under control. Right? Sorry. Gotta move them. Never worry about the face, you're coming now. But that's it. Okay, go.
Success!
Done it. We've done it.
Gently.
We have. Oh, just have to get steady so it doesn't fall down again.
Sure, it's up.
Fair play, man.
Well done, yes, right. That's brilliant.
Even a plumb level.
Everything was something here. Fairies left it here through the nice wire. Yeah. You got enough there to lift and I would change to this one.
More than news.
She does it now. We'll not worry about it now, okay? Let her on to that, we see. I just let her...
There were plenty of clues about this being an ancient site. The wood itself, this wee wood, is called the Forth, Fairfield of Oak, and the townland is Rath, which of course is Fort, and that field behind us is called the Cashel. So that 3 different names, all signifying that this was a very old site. This site gave its name to the townland of Rye. And when Christian doctrine excluded unbaptized children from consecrated ground, the people came back to their old faith, to their old ways. They had no Christian choice, and they brought them to what they thought was a sacred place, to this habitation here overlooking the Swilly, why it had always been significant. And they went back even to old forms of burial, if you could call it burial. They laid the wee body on the ground and they built a cairn of stones around it after sunset, before sunrise. And the idea was that the body would go back to the elements, go back to the air that it had come from. And they were left here in this old and significant place for the people. But it was a sad and cruel doctrine, in my opinion. When I was young myself, living in the house next door, I always poked around and looked for this place because I thought there was something magical about it. In fact, I still do. But I happened on that stone that's still standing here. It was lying face down, a very old Celtic cross, a cross within a circle. It might even have been one of a series of crosses. And some father had obviously brought that quietly and put it beside the grave of his little child. And then when we resurrected it and put it up, we used the same cross for the new monument that is here to mark the memory of those unnamed but not forgotten children. The simple idea here was to make a monument, to make a memorial. It was a great idea and it wasn't mine. I have an enormous debt of gratitude to John Ward, who thought of this and who did all the hard work, and also to the, in fancy terms, the monumental sculptor Thomas Carr from Fanwood, whose great work it is, and all of the neighbours, great stonemasons like Danny McBride, who helped us put that monument in place and to make sure that those wee children will never, with the help of God, ever be forgotten. We spent ages trying to work out how we could get a stone that might have been half a ton weight up through that rough wood without destroying things with big machines. And eventually my wife Patricia thought of the idea of using a horse. And who else, who better than Aki McGinley, who's a horseman all his life. So Aki and his Bob gave us the horsepower. The old ways are the best. And thanks to that and all the neighbours who helped, the big heavy stone was put into place in memory of these small people.